This video will be a critical analysis of a Japanese mental health care system. For this video, we'll be following the life of this character I've named Kota. Kota here is a Japanese citizen. He's 31 and married with 2 children and works a full-time office job, much like 13.5 million other Japanese citizens in the year of 2020. He is the sole breadwinner of his household whilst his wife is a stay-at-home mom, handling most of childcare and the house chores. Nowadays, the presence of women in careers has increased, with 60.2% of the 13.5 million office workers being women. However, there's still the outdated expectation for Japanese women to be stay-at-home mothers after marriage. Kota works a contracted 40-hour week, but does on average around 50 hours due to overtime he does to support his family. These long hours of office work and the struggle to keep his family afloat has left him depressed and anxious. 8-hour days of monotonous work completing reports on a computer, with little socialization and free time, has taken a heavy toll on his mental health. After long days at work, he returns home to help his equally exhausted wife with childcare. Now, if this was in the UK, Kota would be seeking out mental health care from either charities or the national healthcare system, which all offer a variety of treatments for free. However, it is a different case for Kota. Whilst in recent years Japan has taken steps to improve the mental health care system, there's still issues with their system. Mental health care for the most part is covered by Japanese national health insurance, with people expected to pay only 30% of the cost towards therapy. However, counselling is not covered by health insurance and will cost anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 yen for a singular, usually only 30-minute long session. This translates in UK currency to approximately £33 to £133 per session. Due to the high cost for such a short session, counselling isn't a viable option for Kota to take. Whilst antidepressants are a possible option at £6 a pack, Kota still avoids this option as he doesn't want to lessen the money going into his household over his own issues. In Japan, mental health has only recently become a socially acceptable issue. However, many older residents still cling to outdated beliefs that mental health is someone's own inability to control their mind, and is therefore a display of weakness that they should be ashamed of. These types of beliefs held by the elder society still hold a massive impact due to Japan being a country with strong traditional beliefs, namely respecting your elders. This means people are able to speak out against elderly people even if their views are not correct, with the consequences of doing so resulting in you being seen as disrespectful and therefore shunned. With a combination of horrifically long working weeks and a social stigma surrounding mental health, it's unsurprising that Japan has one of the highest suicide rates in the world. In 2016, Japan ranked second in the world for the highest suicide rate, with an average of 18.5 per 100,000 people. In recent years, their suicide rates have lessened slightly, but still show an alarming trend, with 21,007 suicide-related deaths in 2021, in comparison to 27,858 in 2012. Now, the causes of this high suicide rate may seem obvious due to the current state of the mental health care system, as well as society's views on mental health. However, there's another factor that plays a large role in this morbid trend: life insurance. Life insurance in Japan is quick to pay out on claims for suicides that fit within their insurance policies, with on average male life insurance paying out more than double the amount it does for women. As you probably can assume from this, there's a large amount of men who take their own lives in order to help their families financially with the subsequent payout, with 89.1% of suicide victims aged 40 to 60 taking their own lives for the insurance payout. Unfortunately, this type of sacrifice is tied to the still prevalent romanticization of dying an honourable death. This type of romanticization of suicide is often found in a large number of literary works in Japan, as well as in film and TV. In a lot of these works, there is a large focus on either seppuku, which is the honourable ritualistic suicide of a samurai, or either shinju, which is the lover's suicide. This romanticization of suicide, as well as its prevalence in Japanese entertainment media, removes a lot of the negative connotations surrounding suicide, which subsequently lessens the negative stigma around suicide which is common in Western society, and unintentionally makes suicide seem more socially acceptable. Factors such as this, paired with the financial gains for the family and the discouraging prices of counselling, create the perfect breeding ground for suicide cases and generally poor mental health in Japanese society. Kota remembers the last time he had time to himself. He read a book titled No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. He remembers feeling a sense of relatability to Dazai's descriptions of trying to be normal in a world he feels alien to. He wonders how many other people felt the same way when reading this book. The culture in Japan is that of a collectivist one, meaning they prioritize the needs of the collective population or groups over individual needs. This collectivist view often translates over into counselling and mental health treatment. Sessions tend to focus on resolving problems through forming better relations with others. However, there's also the issue of a strong hierarchy system in Japan. Japanese culture teaches you that you are to be respectful of those of a higher position to you, be it your older siblings, your manager at work, or the person a year older than you that you're acquainted with. In Japan, there's the expectation that you respect these people, and for the most part, you do as they tell you to. This translates into therapy with a therapist taking on a role of power over the client, which could be detrimental to the client's therapeutic process. Having an equal position of power in a therapeutic setting allows for a better ability to form a safe and trusting environment which the client is more comfortable to speak in. In UK-based therapy, there's a large emphasis over making the client feel comfortable and of equal power to you, making therapy sessions about the client and what they wish to achieve through it, as opposed to what the therapist believes the client needs. This brings us to the issue of collectivist versus individualist therapeutic approaches. Japan's focus on the collective ignores the needs of the individual, meaning there's a lesser focus on the client's personal feelings and experiences. The collectivist approach generalizes the client's feelings and experiences, making the treatments less tailored to them and therefore less likely to be effective. It, in a sense, distances the client from the therapeutic process, making it less personal and more like a rhetoric repeated to the potential many others who have been in the same situation before them. In comparison, the individualistic approach used in the majority of therapeutic treatments in UK allows the client to feel more engaged in a process. The focus on the self allows for a better understanding of the client and the issues that may have led them to seek out therapy. This is often shown through the humanistic approach that is often used in UK-based therapy, which focuses mainly on the client and the issues that have led them there and better understanding the client as a person and the way that they think. However, there is some benefits to the collectivist culture of Japan. It creates an environment in which society and other people look after one another. It also creates a well-organized and disciplined environment which allows life to run smoothly. It also allows for the development of strong interpersonal bonds as well as very effective group work. However, this has negative effects of people not accrediting themselves for their own hard work and effort, and instead attributing it to external sources such as their peers or their company as a whole. This causes people to prioritize themselves less and struggle to act assertive in regards to their own needs. The need for conformity and being a part of a bigger group in Japanese culture makes people reluctant to freely express themselves, to avoid othering themselves from the greater societal group. This translates into therapeutic settings, with people afraid to speak freely about their actual thoughts due to the expectations of fitting in that is placed on them by society as a whole. This reluctance to be open regarding their feelings inhibits the therapist's ability to understand their client's situation and how to aid them properly, making the incredibly short counselling sessions in Japan even less likely to be beneficial. In the past, Kota tried a session of counselling that he found for 6,200 yen. It was on the cheaper end of the price spectrum for counselling, but he still felt a sense of disgust in himself for paying it. The session was brief and discouraging. All he gained from it was advice to talk with his co-workers more, as well as a few stress-relieving tricks. Ultimately, Kota felt it was a waste of money, which he wished he had got some treats for his wife and children with instead. From what you've heard so far, you may have got the impression that by comparison, the UK mental health system is wonderful, but unfortunately this isn't the case. Whilst the UK may not have the historical culture of suicide acceptance and romanticisation that there is in Japan, there is, however, a long history of abuse within the mental health care system which is still prevalent today. During an inspection in 2020, a mental health hospital in Essex was found to be physically and mentally abusing its vulnerable patients. Their findings included video footage in which staff were seen to drag, slap and kick a patient. Disturbing treatment like this is something that has been an issue in UK-based mental health treatment for years, with treatments such as electroconvulsive therapy originating from the UK in 1939. However, in Japan, mental health treatment historically was something dealt with through religion. Psychotic patients would receive treatments from Buddhist temples and shrines, in which they usually receive one of three forms of treatment: treatment by waterfall or water, old Chinese herbal medicine, or collaborative conjuration with drums. These treatments, in comparison to those historically used in the UK, shows a more humane side to Japan. But unfortunately both sides have serious downfalls when it comes to the treatment and views of those with mental illness, both in the past and in current times. In Japan, there's somewhat of a suicide culture. As previously mentioned, a lot of Japanese media normalizes and romanticizes suicide. Historically in Japan, suicide has been seen as acceptable, especially in the context of war, where seppuku was seen as a way to stay honorable if defeated. This type of acceptance and sometimes encouragement of suicide is still prevalent in modern-day Japan. With the widespread accessibility of the internet, a more recent phenomenon has appeared of suicide pacts. These pacts consist of depressed and suicidal, often school children, coming together online to form a pact between themselves all to commit suicide in the same way. This has led to an increase of group suicides as opposed to the usual individual or couple suicide. The rise of suicide pacts between school children is believed to be caused by bullying, as well as the incredibly tough schooling system in Japan. As well as suicide pacts, many take their own lives due to a feeling of not fitting in. Japanese culture prioritizes being accepted by others and conforming to societal norms. Individuality is often looked down upon in favour of fitting in, and can often lead to people feeling undesirable and abnormal, possibly causing them to feel they only have one option out. This leads us back to Kota. The nagging voice of his parents calling him weak for not being able to fight his inner demons plays in the back of his mind. His wife sits at home exhausted by the two rowdy children she's only just settled to sleep. Her stomach growls. She's hungry, but she gave up her last meal to ensure their children didn't go to bed hungry. Kota sits at his desk in an empty office after hours. His eyes sting after hours staring at his monitor. Then, suddenly, it all makes sense to Kota. He knows what he must do.